Today is going to be a very, very exciting conversation, and our audience, you want to stay tuned for all of it because we're talking about the latest research when it comes to physical decline beginning as we age. We're talking about the dietary guidelines that the administration just released this week with a complete shift. They literally turned everything upside down. Literally. So we'll break that apart a little bit, and then we bring on one more study that was published in Nature Communications linking physical function to quality of life. More importantly, we're talking about these because we want to bring it to your life in a way that's practical and you can make sense of it. So let's jump right in. Welcome back to the 90% Healthy podcast. I'm Klaudia, your co-host, and I've got Don right on the other line.
Hey, Klaudia, how is life in South Florida today?
It's gorgeous. I can't complain. It's been really nice. I went to exercise 6 o'clock in the morning, so I feel accomplished.
There may not be a better time to be in South Florida than right now.
That is correct. Yes.
You actually can turn the air conditioning off from time to time.
Yeah.
Which is always nice.
Open the windows.
Get that sea breeze in. When I was living down there, I don't think I turned the air conditioning in my apartment off more than 5 days a year. This would have been the time that we did it.
Yeah, it is. It is really nice. I really can't complain. It would be nice to just be here during this time of the year and then be somewhere else.
You're telling me.
During the summer.
Yep, you're telling me. That's been the fun part about our life is we've been able to visit a lot of really cool places at really cool times. And we love central northern Arizona, the Sedona area, Flagstaff, Oak Creek Canyon. But in July, it's still 100 degrees. And I don't do heat well. I like cold more than I like heat. But boy, again, being out there right now, be a great time to be there. Being up in the Pacific Northwest, they're getting slammed right now with these atmospheric rivers, but I kind of get off on that stuff. I mean, the snow coming in is just the best. So it's really cool places that we have to visit in this country.
That is true. I have yet to do a lot more American road trips,
There you go.
visiting national parks. It's on the agenda. Let's just put it that way.
You got to get the truck stop license plate that says Klaudia on your keychain. That's how you know you've made it.
That's hilarious.
They should give you that at naturalization.
Right? Seriously.
Yeah.
Speaking of the agenda, today is going to be a very, very exciting conversation. And our audience, you want to stay tuned for all of it because we're talking about the latest research when it comes to physical decline beginning as we age. We're talking about the dietary guidelines that the administration just released this week with a complete shift of they literally turned everything upside down. Literally. And we'll show you and we'll put it up on the screen what this looks like. So we'll break that apart a little bit, and then we bring on one more study that was published in Nature Communications linking physical function to quality of life. So a lot of interesting topics, interesting conversations, and more importantly, we're creating and talking about these because we want to bring it to your life in a way that's practical and you can make sense of it. So let's jump right in.
Just smack it.
It just needs a smack.
Dietary
guidelines.
That solves so many problems. You just smack it.
You just need to either smack it, unplug, replug. One of those things will work.
Yeah, but smack it makes you feel good. So dietary guidelines. So as a history, the government first published dietary guidelines starting back in 1980. That would have been my senior year in high school. And again, we started seeing emergence of the government paying attention, particularly around heart disease. And there were some interesting studies came out. And so much of that dietary guide, so they published this thing, then all of a sudden, the food industry starts to pay attention to it. And it has morphed and pushed and gone back and forth for years now. So we got the new version of it from Health and Human Services yesterday. And Klaudia, I am an overt critic of this administration and what the Kennedys' work. I'm a critic. But with that said, I think they nailed it on the new dietary guidelines. I really think they did a great job. if they could do this shit on everything else they work on, life would be a lot better. But boy, they nailed it on this, and I'm very happy with what they came through with.
Yeah, the industry and just, it took social media by storm. A lot of people who've been advocating for better guidelines for the American
Hmm.
people. This is it. This is what has been in the news. People are advocating for better structure in terms of what is being recommended in schools and hospitals and, government food programs and just through population level health initiatives.
Hmm.
And historically, like you mentioned from the 80s, I believe dietary guidelines get changed or updated every 5 years. Is that
It's
true?
a political document. So
Yeah,
whenever you have a new administration,
they
everybody wants to
usually,
put their stamp on it. So it winds up
yeah.
being a political document.
And it started with the food pyramid, and
Yep.
then it turned into the
My
my
plate.
plate, and then now it's an inverted pyramid.
It's a
And
slice of pizza is what it looks like. I saw it nice. It looks like a big old slice of pizza with all the toppings on it. So that's what I saw.
yeah, but for the first time, density of what you eat most of and what you should eat least of is finally in the order that you and I have
Yes.
been talking about.
Yes.
And people like us have been talking about in order to really try to prevent disease and also address some of the chronic conditions that the individuals in the US deal with, whether it's diabetes, heart conditions, Alzheimer's, etc., that often get linked to nutritional intake.
Hmm.
So let's
And
go a little bit into.
and it's real. This is real stuff. Listen, the two things that I saw that came out of it that just I loved. Just eat real food. Okay, this is the best part. I've had the opportunity to teach nutrition classes, I don't know, maybe a dozen times over the last few years, over the last 30 years. And inevitably when you're teaching nutrition, I'm usually using a syllabus that someone else has set up. I'm usually coming in as an adjunct or an assistant instructor, and I'm using someone else's syllabus, which has someone else's textbook. And Wardwell is the author that does most of the nutrition textbooks. And we do an entire week of instruction on reading food labels. Well, Claudia, the best food in the supermarket doesn't have a food label.
Hmm.
It's on the outside of the aisles. It starts with produce and fruits and vegetables. It works its way to the back of the store to fresh meats and proteins and things like that. None of those products have a nutrition label on them. Real food doesn't need a nutrition label.
Yeah.
So, but when you high, so we've raised the value of just eat real food. We've also said processed food, highly processed food, ultra processed food, no matter how you want to, needs to be limited. Living your life eating out of a box is a dangerous life. It's a dangerous process. And so I think those were the two things that excited me the most.
Yeah, and it was interesting that they really honed in on prioritize protein and prioritize fiber, which I think is a big missing piece of the
Absolutely.
puzzle in the general population. And I mean, even if they do eat protein, it's often paired with a burger or often paired with a slice of pizza,
Watch it.
where it's
Burgers are back in play, man. Burgers are back in play. So yeah, and that's one of the challenges there. So again, just those two elements I think were great, and I personally do think the added emphasis on protein is going to turn out to be a good one. We're
Hmm.
starting to see some pushback. The nutrition community is interesting. It's very dogmatic,
Oh yeah.
and here's the other thing you cannot forget the difference between Klaudia Balogh and Don Moxley are dramatic. Okay, the genetic differences we are dramatic, and it's realistic that Klaudia Balogh can thrive on a plant-based diet, and Don Moxley will thrive on a carnivore diet. That's real. That's
Mhm.
and what is so important about this is being able to get a in general, eat real food. whether it comes from plants or whether it comes from animals is something you work out, but just eating real food is, and ultra processed, lower that down. Whether it comes, I mean, once it's ultra processed, it's hard to tell if it's from a plant or an animal. But yeah, dropping that down, I think this is what I'm very optimistic about.
And it's really interesting how for a really, really long time, we were told to either have very limited amounts of dairy or fat-free dairy. Now they're doing the complete opposite. They're recommending dairy and
The whole dairy.
saying full fat dairy with obviously no added sugars. And they added a small bit to it where they talk about fermented foods, which I really appreciate because a lot of people undermine how important these pro and prebiotics are for our gut health that are found in these fermented
And
foods.
they're talking about the microbiome.
Yeah,
We
I know.
finally have a government agency that's stepping up. Listen, we talked about it with the episode with Alicia Falzano in the fact that either deep sea exploration or space exploration, well, they have the equivalent level of complexity to understanding gut. Okay.
Yeah.
Our gut it's complex. We are not even close to having a handle on it, but we recognize the importance. So it's at least stepped into the documents, and I don't think you're going to see that go away. I think you're going to see that continue to develop,
Hopefully.
and I thought that was exciting.
And then I wanted to talk a little bit about, on the flip side, how it can be misinterpreted by Americans. I obviously there's a large percentage of this graph that shows to eat meat, but then if people still underconsume fiber, I think there still can be issues
Right.
with gut health, with blood sugar regulation, with
Yes.
etc. So I just really hope that it's not going to lean too far into people eating meat, and then completely minimizing the value of fiber.
Again, it's an exploration, Claudia. You
Yeah.
got to figure out. Listen, there are hundreds and thousands of examples of people who went straight carnivore. Okay, that experience a great deal of success. That's why
Yeah.
we have keto movements. That's why we have these things. It's not for everybody.
No.
Okay, and I totally accept that. And that's why, people will reach out to me from time to time. We'll be talking. They're like, "Well, what do you do?" I refuse to answer that question most of the time
Yeah.
because you're not me. The person I'm talking to, different age, different gender, different genetic background, different environmental stuff. There's just so many differences. But what I do want people to learn is how to monitor yourself. We spend a lot of time talking about this. What are the key indicators? What are the key performance indicators for health and performance? And how do you utilize those to track what you're doing? And this is one of the great times that we live in. We live in a time, and I sent you an article earlier today that will probably turn into a podcast episode. CES is going on right now, the Consumer Electronics Show. They have a device that you can put, that a woman's tampon that measures, or her pad, not a
Okay.
tampon, but a pad that measures hormones.
It's wild.
So we can see FSH in real time during the menstrual cycle. This is such an interesting look. This is such an interesting opportunity. And again, this is that self-tracking, self-actualization, and being able to make these decisions on your own. Listen, we live in a really cool time to see a lot of these changes taking place.
Yeah, and there are a lot of wearables that are popping up at CES. And also,
My
did you
God.
see that the FDA changed something about that wearables don't need to face any type of regulatory backlash unless obviously they just have to make sure that they are not diagnosing or treating or curing or whatever, but information only.
Yes, you got to know your claims. And information is always good.
Yeah,
Now, there are wearables out there that give you shitty data.
that's true.
Okay. And I don't know what's in your social media feed, but right now mine is moderately dominated by smart glasses.
Oh, I know
I'm
that.
seeing a ton of stuff. So we have the existing Meta Oakley Ray-Ban
Yeah.
offering that's out there for a $500 product. Well, I saw 3 different ads today of smart glasses anywhere from $35 to $50. Now,
And is that camera or what?
with camera, with speakers, with everything. Now, are the cameras different? Yes. Are the speakers different? Yes. Are the chipsets different? Yes. Is the Meta version probably an upscaled version? Yeah, it's probably closer to a Corvette than it is to a Nova. But but this is that spread, and there's a lot of wearables. In the wearables come in this as well. So when you're making the decision on things like this, you got to go make sure they've done their due diligence, that the data is good. I know I see a lot of shitty data coming from, frankly, from some very big wearable manufacturers. If I talk about it, I talk about devices that I think have great that have established themselves as having great data sets.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of them that, frankly, I won't talk about, and they kind of suck.
Yeah, there's a lot of
So
rubbish. So, and much like with every industry. Anyways, and speaking of, there are a lot of things that suck even in the food industry. I wanted to gear us back into the dietary guidelines because I wanted
way
to
to
talk a
go,
little
steer us
bit,
back, put a bit in his mouth, getting back on task. Okay.
steer us back because I think it's worth mentioning that it's one thing that it's been reversed in terms of what we are now looking at, but also quality. I worry that because a majority of meat in this country is produced through industrial processes, through
KFU kind of setups. Yep.
terrible circumstances.
Yes.
So there are these critics that I've read online where like, well, now we're just going to fill up Americans with a lot of industrial meat that's fed antibiotics, that's fed hormones, that's fed a terrible food. So now obviously you want to weigh things out, but what do you think?
Well, listen, I think there's a couple things happening. I don't know if you've watched the TV advertising. One of the big chicken manufacturers has an ad on, and their ad is they show someone with their car broken down and they're throwing pills in the car, and
Oh, I think
the
I've seen that.
tagline is you can't solve everything with antibiotics.
Yeah.
And so they have an antibiotic free, so they're advertising. Now, I don't know what's behind the curtain on that, but if they're advertising that, that tells you the public interest is paying attention to it.
Hmm.
Number one. Number
Hopefully.
two is, you know, I'll be glad when we start to support the local family farmer.
Mhm.
Okay. Right now our meat is basically managed by four major companies. You know what? I like it when I go to the county fair and we buy a beef there that's been raised by a local family and you put that in your freezer. There's not a better way to put nutrition into your body than purchasing products from local family farmers.
That's cool. So how long does that beef last you guys in the freezer?
Well, we're not doing it right now, but,
Yes.
because I can't put a chest freezer in my RV, or I don't have a chest freezer in my RV. I could probably figure out a way to do it. But we have, when we had a house that
Yeah.
didn't have wheels on it, we had a freezer in a basement, and half a beef would last for a year.
Wow.
Um,
My brother's been
you know,
thinking about doing that. So that's why I was asking.
Listen, if you do your best to establish relationships with local family farms, for one, I know one of the grocery stores I go to here, they publish in their produce section the local farms that the produce has come from
Hmm.
in the summertime. Okay. So that's pretty cool. I like
Yeah.
that. I purchase those products. I love farmers markets. This is this lifestyle that you got to start. Now, Instacart will not deliver farmers market quality food. It
No.
just doesn't do it. Now, but I also understand the value of Instacart and why to use it. But this is that reaching out, trying to figure out how to extend when health span and lifespan become important to you, then you'll start to explore these other avenues. And I think we have to do a better job of supporting the local family farmers so they're not under pressure from big corporate agriculture. I was talking to Robbie Bresser yesterday from Therasage. We're going to have him as a guest on the podcast, but we're talking about some research they've seen with glyphosate and the effect of glyphosate and what's going on. Listen, like it or not, it's in our environment. Okay. Now you've got to understand what it's doing and take steps to mitigate that. But let me get back on track. I apologize.
No, it's interesting.
Listen, just eat real food. If you can buy it from someone who grew it in a place that you can drive to, even better.
Yeah, and of course, we understand there is the markup of price that there's a higher cost when it comes to farmers markets or even just
Not
organic produce,
necessarily, not
but
necessarily.
it's I
Yeah.
think it's narrowing. I do
And
agree.
the quality is ridiculously different. It
Yes.
is ridiculously different. I'm not a huge organic guy, okay? I think organic is it kinda gets kicked around sometimes, but I'll tell you what, there's some foods that I don't that are my bananas are always organic
Mm.
because they taste good, and when I eat a banana that's not, it tastes like mush, it's so.
You know what I discovered recently? Blue-shelled eggs. Have you
Oh,
tried
okay,
those?
yeah, yeah, from okay,
The egg yolk is so good. It's like
yeah,
this really, really dark orange,
yeah,
such
yeah.
a rich yolk. It is so
That's
much better.
that blue shelled egg was probably laid by a chicken within driving distance of where you live.
It's so
Okay.
cool.
So yeah, we've had, growing up, we had chickens. I'll tell you what, the scariest thing in the world, you go down to the barn, you're picking up the eggs from the barn,
Uh,
you reach up into one of these nests and there's a black snake in there that's been eating eggs that just
Oh.
scares the daylights out of you. But he's just a snake getting an egg. But there's nothing to light you up faster than that.
Oh, I bet you wake up real fast. I remember I used to do that. No snakes, but my grandma used to have chickens. And in the morning, I would go out with a little basket and just get the eggs under the chickens. It was great.
If you have chickens and you have eggs, you have snakes. Go.
Really?
You just didn't see them.
I probably did it.
You just didn't see them. So,
Okay.
okay.
So we recommend listeners, audience, reach out to us if you have any questions about the dietary guidelines. And also we'll add the link to the full PDF in the show notes so you can access it and read it. It's really not that long and it's worth taking a look what they've shifted around.
So let's take a step up. One of the things that these guidelines influences like school meals, hospitals, things like that. Listen, school meals are going to be an issue until we decide we're going to fund school meals.
Mm.
Till we're going to fund this. Right now, you can put all the guidelines out there, but if you don't fund these programs, you're going to get shitty food sources because they just don't have the money. If you want to have this, you've got to say this is important. We know it's important. Kids who eat good food are smarter. They learn better. The data is clear on this. The second half of this, as a responsible citizen, is stepping up and saying, okay, let's make sure we're putting our money where our mouth is and we're supporting our local schools and we're not constantly forcing them to make bad decisions because we're not willing to support it financially. That's the other half. So there's very much, this is one of the things we're dealing with in this country right now. There's a have and a have not kind of thing going on, and school lunches for kids, we've got to make it a priority. And if Health and Human Services wants to start to put some federal money against some food programs, that'll make me even happier.
That would be nice. Yes, I agree. Okay, let's continue on. The study that you sent me, which is really
Hmm.
interesting just the other day, it was a longitudinal study that tracked over 400 people for nearly 50 years. Now, that's
Hmm.
some serious data. And these
It's nice.
individuals were not athletes, so just, average people and
Yep. Joe
ages
Bag of
between
Donuts
Joe Donuts. So it was really interesting to see what they were looking at is when physical decline begins.
begins.
And it sucks because it begins so soon.
I'll tell you what jumped out at me when I saw this is I'm like, okay, why? That's the question I have. Why? And I think there's three things that come into play that come to mind quickly, but there could be more.
Mhm,
Number one, so it shows that physical decline may begin as early as 35. That's pretty young.
mhm.
So why is that happening? Well, there's three things. Number one, lifestyle. For up until your 30s, a lot of people are out getting going, trying, listen, I don't know when most people get married or hook up, but when you're in your mating phase, you're really invested in physical performance. Okay. And you're driving it, you're pushing it. All of a sudden you bust a couple kids out, those kids grow up and they start to have babies, you enter grandpa grandma stage, and all of a sudden that motivation to get to the gym or that motivation to say, okay, how do I look, kind of drops a little bit. So lifestyle begins to impact around work, around lifestyle, these things. So that's one of the drivers, the environmental drivers. The second, we know that there is a change in the bone marrow as you age as it relates to stem cell production. Now, we're going to have a stem cell doctor on the podcast. We've already set it up. We don't have a date yet, but we're getting this put together. But your body does not do anything from a healing or growth standpoint that doesn't originate in stem cells. It's where it starts. And your body's, when you're young, so much of your bone marrow can produce stem cells because you're growing, you're going. Oh, by the way, it may start to turn around in your late 20s, early 30s. We start to see some of this bone marrow go from red to yellow. Now, we always have the ability to produce stem cells. That's always there. When you can't make stem cells, you're dead. Okay, you got to have it. So I think this was a really interesting point. And we'll talk more about this with Joy when we get her on the podcast. But I think that's a second factor that looks at, okay, what would be one of the big factors? The third, I think, is hormones. Looking at hormone transition, 35, we're starting the early side of menopause. There's some people that are becoming perimenopausal at this point. We're starting to see a shift in hormones. What's the great thing? We live in a time. This is why Klaudia, someone your age, needs to have a hormone profile done, a complete hormone profile, because when you do finally trip yourself through menopause, you can then go back and match your hormone profile from where you're at now, from when you're in your reproductive phase. So one of my recommendations for young females, get your hormones done.
Dutch test?
When you're at your optimum.
Dutch test or regular
Dutch test.
panel?
I think right now, the product is Dutch test. And if you're listening to this, you can go to it's called DutchTest.com. I think we'll double check that. And there's doctors that can do it, and the Dutch and doctors who understand and interpret Dutch tests are these are the real wizards that really get to understand this. I know the doctors I respect the most have the best handle on hormones. Amy Killen and Elizabeth Yurth and Eric Serrano. And these are just great docs that really understand hormones. So hormones start to shift. So you've got that three-headed horseman of environment and lifestyle, stem cell production change, and hormone changes. And we're seeing this kick in as early as 35. But there's good news.
Yes, and I really hope I'm following up on that sentence well. I think the good news is that the earlier you start becoming active, the slower that decline moves forward. So what they found is that people who were active at age 16 were stronger and fitter for decades. Yes. So it's almost like they had a savings account of being fit and just active, and their body has built up the resilience over time by being active. So their decline was slightly delayed or not as intense as those who have lived the sedentary lifestyle primarily through their teens, 20s, and early 30s. So I think what shows is that, yes, you want to be active as a teenager. You want to be, especially as, your hormones are kicking in, put those hormones to work. And especially testosterone for men.
Yeah, well, yes.
And women.
And for women. But first of all, exercise. Listen, if you're not Amish, okay, if you're Amish, you're probably not listening to this podcast. So we can eliminate there. So everyone here is probably not Amish. You're not doing enough work. Our environment has shut us down. We don't walk enough. We don't lift enough. We don't move enough. If you're Amish, you do. Okay, they get it taken care of. But if you're not, then you've got to get this in. So you need to have a place to put positive stress on your body. We call that exercise. That exercise can either be cardiovascular focused or strength and conditioning focused. You can have both, but you have to invest in this. This has got to be either in your home, at work. I think you have to have it at three places. You have it at home, at work, and your special place. Special place can be a country club. It can be like the club you go to. It's your social setting. They need to have a fitness place because it needs to be available all the time. Number one. Number two is that stop training to lose weight. Stop it. Stop it. Okay. If you're going in to work out, you're going in to gain weight. You want the scale to be moving up when you're doing it correctly. And this is where things like body composition, you can go back and listen to the episode we did with
Nutrition.
Spreen and your ability to, yeah,
There we go.
there it came. And your ability to measure your body composition, it's easy now. You set a phone up, you put on some tight-fitting clothes, and boom, it's there. It's as good as a DEXA scan.
DEXA, yeah, they
Yeah.
validated it.
So train to gain weight. Train to gain weight. There's going to be a point in time when you're going to start losing weight, and your doctor's going to say, get your things in order, because you started a process of decline that is getting ready to terminate your life. So gain weight, gold. It's money in the bank, and put as much muscle on as you can early and hold it. So that's what we've learned from that study. I thought was really good. But the other part is, it's never too late to start. If you have been sedentary, and if you haven't done that early investment, beginning to exercise, and we'll talk more about this in the next article, how to exercise, but beginning to exercise and beginning to extends health span, lifespan. The
Yes.
data is clear. So, I've talked about it on the podcast before, Klaudia. I feel like I failed in several ways. Having been part of the fitness industry now for going on 45 years, we don't have a culture of fitness. A culture of fitness right now, and fitness can be healthy nutrition, which we just got done talking about, is the counterbalance to the threat of illness. And illness now in this country can bankrupt you. You
Mm-hmm.
want to do everything you can to fight that. You do that with these behaviors that we've talked about: strength training, cardiovascular, healthy food, stress management. These tools we've talked about on the podcast a lot. But the great thing is that we have an opportunity, and the data shows it's never too late.
It is never too late. And I love that you mentioned stop exercising for losing weight. And I think it's
Ugh,
such an important advice at the time where people have such an easy access to an effective tool that helps them lose weight.
like GLP-1s you're
Yeah,
talking about.
like GLP-1s,
Yeah, yeah.
100%. Like it makes it really easy for you to decrease your appetite and really get rid of the excess weight that you're carrying around. But there's so much else that you're losing if you're not
Thank
exercising.
God we have it. Thank God we have it. Okay. I think it's one of the most
It's a
important
great tool.
technologies we have. But what we've learned, we saw this with gastric bypass surgery too, by the way, Klaudia, is that someone, morbidly obese goes in, they drop all this fat. If you don't have the other behaviors, the strength training, the cardio, doing the stresses to build these physiological systems, it's all for naught.
And
You
having
may
enough
look,
protein.
yeah, and having enough protein, as according to the food tag
Yeah,
pyramid
but
as
now
recently.
now at least it's recommended to have
Yeah.
at least, I think it's recommended that they say 1.2 to 1.8 grams, which
And
is,
that's only a slight change. I mean,
yeah,
they've
it
raised
was
it. I
point
mean,
eight, right?
it was point 0.8. Again, I think that, listen, it's moving. I don't want to, I was getting ready to say it's like moving deck chairs on the Titanic. I don't think that's the right analogy here, but they're moving a lot of the pieces on the chessboard, no doubt about that. But they've brought a couple new pieces to the chessboard, which I think are great. And and again, just eat real food.
Eat real food and exercise. We have one last study that we wanted to bring to your attention because it's really, really interesting. And thank you, Don, for sending it to me, because I think our listeners will find it useful, especially when they're looking at exercise having an additional sort of benefit that goes beyond physical benefits, emotional,
Yes.
mental benefits, but also
Visual phenotypical
supporting
signs. Yeah.
immune system and
Boom.
boosting your immunity. It is like, whoa. And please tell us what happened.
Listen, we just finished living through a pandemic. Okay. I don't have to remind many people, but the world shut down when we had a
Did
new
it?
virus released. Oh, it sure did. We were using refrigerator trucks as morgues in big cities. We were stressing our medical system to the bone, to a breaking point. It is not fair. Listen, when someone decides to get into healthcare, they don't deserve to have to serve in a military like setting because the rest of the population doesn't have an immune system. Now, in the pandemic, the people that suffered the most were the people with the most comorbidities. Okay.
Yes.
These are the people with the poorest immune systems. The people who did the best were the people with the least comorbidities, exercisers, fasters, people who ate healthy food. These people did better. Why? Their immune system was better. Well, not only do we know that exercise contributes to a stronger immune system, but we're also able to start to look at, well, maybe some diversity in your exercise might be something you need to pay attention to because some are more effective than others. I don't want someone to listen to this podcast and say, I'm going to stop exercising this way and I'm going to start exercising this way. That's a mistake. But what you do is say, maybe I'm going to add a little bit of spice to my meal, to my exercise meal. I'm going to, and for me, no, God, Klaudia, I did high intensity exercise. I'm talking about to the bone. As a college athlete, the high intensity exercise we did was ridiculous. And frankly, it takes a when I think of high intensity exercise, my mindset goes to gladiator training. And I don't want to
Mhm.
do that shit anymore. Okay. I just don't want to go there. But I do need to take a look at, I'm a big zone 2, 3 guy. I really get that investment and I'm not stopping that. But you know what? Based on this study, I'm going to start to drip in a little bit more high intensity stuff, pushing to the max, getting going, doing maximal work.
Yeah.
And I think this is the thing, because one of the mistakes that people make is that we think of zones. When we've talked about zone training and heart rate training in 5 zones. One is usually your rest zone or rest or walking. Zone 2 is fast walking, getting up to a little bit of intensity. Zone 3 is what we call sub threshold. It's still almost nearly purely aerobic, but not with a cortisol response. Zone 4, we're starting to create lactate. We're starting to create acid, and we're going to get a cortisol response, a stress response from that we have to manage. But zone 5,
Hmm.
you really can't measure with a heart rate monitor, to tell you the truth. Zone 5 is just maximal work, just going to the bone. Here's an example. We live in an RV. Right now, I am not on a situation where we have sewers hooked to the RV. So about every 2 weeks, I have a honey wagon that I have to hook up to our RV, and I fill it with the waste products from our black tanks and our gray tanks, and I have to take it down. There's a sewer that I take it down to and empty it into. And the golf cart that I normally used to do this with, it was cold, it lost its charge. So I had to, this tank's 35 gallons, 8 pounds per gallon, do the math on that. And I had to drag it about 100 yards.
Mhm.
Um, that was challenging. And so for me, that was a maximal effort. And you know what? Next day I felt it, but I felt good about it. And I need to start to drip this stuff into my program because the variety is so important.
It is super important. And what the researchers really looked at is whether a workout would change how these immune cells behave. And they
Hmm.
sort of asked another question. Now, if I work harder or keep it moderate, is that change different? And they did find some interesting things. So they compared the high intensity interval exercise that you mentioned, and they also compared it with the moderate intensity continuous exercise. It was the same time of total work, it
Hmm.
was just different intensity. And they measured blood before the activity, right after, and then hour later.
Hmm.
And they looked at a lot of different, well, they looked at these called PBMC
Hmm.
immune cells.
These include your T cells, your B cells, your big immune cells. That's what's in that
Yeah, the
assay.
natural killer cells, basically just the majority of these immune cells that you want to look that protect your health. And let me go to the point where what they found. So both workouts caused immune cells to become active, but they
All
looked at,
work is good.
yes,
That's
every
what we
like,
learned.
yes, definite work is good. However, what happened inside those immune cells changed based on those intervals and based on
Intensities.
the
Yep.
activity intensity. So after the moderate intensity, they had in those immune cells, there were 64 proteins that changed. Now, in the high intensity exercise, there were over 1,300 proteins that changed. in those immune cells. So it's a multiple fold increase in activity of your immune cells. So imagine how much protection. It's like your immune cells are gearing up to protect you
Right.
for whatever life is throwing your way. So it doesn't mean that, okay, because you're going to work at high intensity today, you're not going to get sick tomorrow, but it's just building up your resilience over time. So when you do get a flu or you do catch a cold or some of those viruses, that bacteria that run around, your body is a lot more equipped to handle it.
It's essentially a vaccination against infection. Okay.
Mm.
Now, again, Health and Human Services, you want to hit another home run? Okay. Instead of bitching about the vaccines that people are taking, start talking about the fact that if you do this, this, and this, and from an exercise standpoint, it's going to enhance your immune system. It's going to make all those things, regardless of where you're at on vaccination, all of these things. And again, in the absence of exercise and healthy diet, you're going to have comorbidities. You're going to
Yeah.
have the same problems that we had before. This is like a vaccine against everything. And then you throw in things like fasting that encourages the autophagy process. This is something I didn't see come out of the food guide pyramid, and
Fasting,
the
dietary
eating
guidelines.
windows. I think this could be a really good thing to add. By the way, we didn't talk about it. Their focus on eliminating sugar.
Yes, it was great.
Thank goodness. So now I don't know what the sugar lobby's doing on this. I'm sure they're climbing up someone's butt out there in Washington, but they finally stepped up and said, okay, stop drinking liquid sugar. Stop it. There's lots of ways to do this, but that was the other thing. So yeah,
Yeah.
getting to a point to where we do have autophagy in the cell, we do have that cellular cleaning process. This is where lifespan, health span comes from.
Yeah, and of course, the study was not as gigantic as the one we talked about
No,
earlier.
no.
This was only 23 adults who were healthy and fit, so we're not looking at the general public population. So obviously, we can't generalize, but the mechanism of action is really interesting that
It's
they
legit.
discovered. It was consistent across these subjects, and it doesn't say that now every day you have to hit the gym with high intensity interval training. That
No,
is not what we're saying. I
we're
mean,
not
the
saying that.
90% healthy does not make you want to have to kill yourself in the gym every single day. But maybe start with doing a 10-minute high intensity interval on the Stairmaster where you're walking at moderate intensity for a minute and then you're running up the stairs for another 30 seconds and then you're recovering. And so it's just anything that is a lot more intense than what you're currently doing, work it in your schedule. I mean, for example, for me, it doesn't always have to be also sprints, which obviously a lot of people think about as all out. You can do
Mhm.
that on an assault bike. You can do on a grog. What do you use? That's the bike. Grog. What is the bike you have?
Oh, my Velotron?
Yes,
My
Veltron.
Peloton, Velotron? Yeah,
Yes.
okay, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That. Or also something that I like to do, and it kicks my butt. It seems like it's a slow thing, but I stack like 245 plates on a sled and I
Mhm.
push it
Love
and then
that.
I pull it. It gets me out of breath. And I'm not sprinting, I'm not running, but I'm exerting
But
so
it's
much
maximal
effort.
work. It's
And it gets
maximal
me
work.
up to, yes, not zone 5, but zone 4 as measured by my aura. But
Yeah,
also, I'm like
yeah,
after that session. So it's just whatever is harder, what you're currently doing, and incorporate it for once a week. And then 4 weeks later, maybe twice a week. So it doesn't have to be all
yeah.
everything at
It
once.
doesn't have to be the whole thing, yeah, and work with a professional. There's good exercise
Yeah.
professionals out there that you can work with. If you can reach out to us if you have questions, that's what we do. This stuff isn't rocket science,
No.
but at the same time, it's not bro science. And finding that middle ground and helping people make those choices better. So and you know what? It might be going out once a week and just sprinting, warming up and doing a sprint up the hill or doing a sprint in the yard. Work with a pro on this because I don't want you popping a hammy, when you
You
go out and
warm
do this
up after.
because you're well, and you start and work your way up, but there's lots of things to go with that. So
There is. Okay, let's close things out. I wanted to wrap up to let our audience know what we just talked about and what are some of the things that they can find in the show notes. So first, we went over the dietary guidelines that are brand new. They are going to be in the show notes, and it's an exciting time. I think I was very impressed, and I can't. I mean, I want to say I expected at least this based on what they've talked about. Like we're going to ship things around, we're going to change things, and based on the type of people that are now in the administration, I'm glad that what we got is in alignment with what a lot of people like you and I have been hitting the drum with. And I'm just curious how it's going to be put in practice.
Hey, even a blind squirrel trips over a nut every once in a while. So, good on them. They got it. Now let's see if they can't capitalize on this and make
Yeah.
another good move. Like I said,
Yeah.
fun school lunches.
Yes, that would be super good. Yeah. And then the next study we talked about, also going to be in the show notes. That one showed us when our body begins to decline and when it peaks, but also what are some of the protective things that slow that decline down. And more
Mhm.
specifically, that thing is exercise. We just, gosh, got to get out there, work your
I
muscles.
it's killed me. I think about this, but maybe we move the needle. If you're listening to this, if you're looking at that 90% healthy, you do not, first of all, have compassion for yourself. Don't beat yourself up. Figure out a way to make this work. And again, if you're not doing anything right now, just beginning a practice of meditation will change your life. It'll
Mm,
change the way you have now. Then you can add in some walking. Then you can add some little things. And again, as your lifestyle adjusts to it, you can add more. But it's about owning it, not waiting for it to impact you. Your environment is driving you to a point where you're just not as healthy. I mean, you're 0% healthy, not 90% healthy if you let environment drive it. If you own it and you put it again, we talked about goals last week. Get that trainable life event out there on the horizon. Start to dream, start to get that what they call vision board put together, manifest that shit. And how you like that? There's some metaphysics for you.
there we go.
Manifest that shit. Um, we've gotta make a clip out of that, by the way. Um, so so yeah, get that going and just 1% changes, little changes aggravated over time are
Yeah.
life changing.
And yeah, the consistency is what's going to
Yes,
build you up to that 90% level. It's not the fact that you cut out sugar drinks. It's not
we'll
the
do
fact
that
that you
too.
start walking. But all those things, what's the word, compound on top of
Yes,
each other and will eventually get you to that 90% level where you have that 10% buffer of freaking live life and go on vacation and have the cheesecake and have the pizza, and your body is
yes,
not going to go into a spiral of guilt and the spiral of issues because your resilience is just so freaking strong that it can withstand it. And
yep.
gosh, enjoy it.
Well, like I said, I think that three great pieces, and again, we hope
Yeah.
you enjoy what we're doing. We know there's people listening, and we thank you. Continue to reach out if you have questions. You can find me on LinkedIn at Don Moxley, or you can go to my website trainrecoverwin.com. Don't judge me. I did the website myself. I am not a coder, but you know what? The information's good. It's
Yeah.
solid. It's there. So you can reach out to us there. You can find Klaudia at Longevity Journalist on social media.
Yes.
You can find her, Klaudia Balogh, on LinkedIn. These are the two places. Do you spend much time on Facebook?
Facebook, not really.
Less and less
No,
for me.
I don't
Yeah.
even the messenger is not popping up as a notification. So sometimes when I go in there, I'm like, oops, my friends messaged me 3 days ago.
Oh, well,
So yeah.
frankly, that's 3 months ago for me.
Yeah, I try to be a little bit better at it. Yeah.
Yeah, again, you'll find me on Instagram, you'll find me on LinkedIn,
Yeah.
and that's the best way to do it. But if you have
Yeah.
questions, reach out. We've got some cool free products up on Train, Recover, Win. By the way, I had 4 requests this week for
Oh,
the 20 tips for exploring HRV.
that's awesome. That's
So
a great document.
that's how I know people are listening. So
That's so great.
I've sent, and I love it when people do that. So if you have questions, let us know.
Let us know and send this episode to somebody who needs to hear about it and know about it. And if you have any questions or if you read a research article and you're just like, what is this? And I want this broken down, send it to us.
Yeah, let us know.
Sweet. We'll
Thanks,
see you
Claudia.
next
Have a
week.
great
Thanks,
week.
Don. Bye.
See ya.
Yeah.